Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
How's everybody doing today? Are we enjoying the Fusion Fest? Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm so glad you all joined us today for what I think is going to be a really interesting conversation. I'm going to start by letting Amanda introduce herself and tell us a little bit about how she got here.
Thank you. My name is Amanda Stephenson, owner of the Fresh Food Factory, which turned into the Fresh Food Factory Market and now soon to be the Fresh Food Factory Market and Eatery. And I'm excited about that growth and the impetus of actually starting my business. It came up from growing up on a farm in Virginia and wanting to escape that life. And then I moved to DC and I saw that there are a lot of need here in DC for culture, agriculture. I wanted culture beyond agriculture. That's why I moved to DC. But we needed agriculture here. And farming was a way of life for my family. It was hard work, but it was well worth it. And when I was at the age of 10, my father, he was given a terminal prognosis of cancer. He was given a terminal prognosis of cancer, 6 months to 1 year to live. He surpassed that life expectancy by 18 years. And, that was, yeah, that was definitely something that was life changing, but that really showed me that food is multi solving. It was, an income for us, it was medicine for him. And also, it really taught me a lot of valuable lessons growing up on a farm. And then coming here, rooted in Anacostia, I saw that there were a lot of health disparities. I saw that people were dying some 16 years, 17 years sooner than those west of the Anacostia River. And you have to look at, like, why is it actually happening? What's going on with our people right here in the community? And having that model, though I wanted to escape it, I didn't know why I was actually born in this. And I always say, I didn't choose this life, it actually chose me. It was the blueprint for the Fresh Food Factory Market and Eatery. Now in this community, people are saying, hey, I have this disease. You could actually suggest eating something different, growing something differently. And, hey, we can actually make money from this thing. So that was really the start of the Fresh Food Factories Market, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, but and so I know that Megan gave some of the introduction for both of us, but I want to go a little bit deeper and talk about how you advocate for food equity and economic development in our neighborhoods.
I became really go hard because of, again, how I grew up, really seeing the difference that needs to be had, being the change that I want to see, stop waiting on the savior, someone to come in our community and create these changes. I worked in economic development for years, and just trying to recruit businesses to come east of the river, start a market, do whatever they need to actually do here to really help people. They were looking at market studies and making determinations if they were going to come based on educational attainment, based on incomes, and people shouldn't really have lack. People shouldn't be living in a food and healthcare desert. They shouldn't be living in a food swamp community just because they don't have the educational attainment. And we can't really blame them. We don't really know what happened. We don't really know the cause of it. But starting the market, making sure that people had access to healthy food, making sure that people could create a paradigm shift, just like my father was actually making a shift, a transition in life and his life expectancy. I wanted that same thing to happen for my community. And then to know, like, people here, like, knowing the economics and the median income is like 34,000. How do we actually make a shift there as well? So taking my educational background, taking the experience that I had, and saying, hey, you know what? We could make food, and yes, we could actually sell it to benefit the community. But a lot of people in this community are makers of great product, and they know how to grow, and they just need the platform to generate revenue and increase their household incomes. So then adding education to the Fresh Food Factory Market was a natural fit. So we have certifications that people could attain. We have like nutritional classes. I became an AGO advisor, and that's working with USAID to source product directly from Africa to now sell in the U.S., identify U.S. buyers. And to me, that's bringing in those heritage foods that the community needs, and they're being generationally removed from those foods, and they can have them in the community. And, we have a lot of business owners in this room, a lot of them that's connected to Wacif and the Anacostia Art Center. But what if we actually buy them bulk, and we could eliminate a lot of third party? I'm buying third party and it's really costing a lot. But how do we actually create a shift? How do we really make a transition for the community? So just looking at ways that I can introduce change. How can I really make impact? How can I make sure that my community is healthy and wealthy? I'm a little bit biased because I live here, but these are things that I thought about when planning. Hey, you know what? I need to make sure that I mend the gaps, because again, they've been here far too long, and I have two young sons, and I don't want them to be sitting down having the same conversations that we're having when they're my age. Things need to actually change now. I know Milani and I and a lot of other families, we were getting together talking about things that we want to see. We have to be that change, because if it hasn't happened by now, it's not going to happen until we do something. So it's about, seeing the gaps in the market and being able to implement change.
Yeah, so you said a lot there, and something that I want to focus on is this impact multiplier, right? So we start with trying to address food deserts, and then that multiplies into educational resources, that multiplies into economic development. Did you think that you would have that sort of impact when you started out? Was that the goal, to have this multiplier effect?
Yes, it was. And just taking my background and just using it, I always believe people should find their purpose in life. And again, I say I didn't choose this, it chose me, because I think this is purpose, and it is purposeful, and it is using what you've been through to actually make that difference. So any innate gift that you were born with, you were actually given that for a reason. Things that you've gone through in life, how do you actually use them to actually help shape your future, and etc. So yes, I wanted to do these things, and yes, I was actually telling people, hey, this is my concept. Yes, I want to actually have fresh, healthy, and ethnic foods in the community. I want to do these trainings, different things like that. And I was just hearing people say, like, the people in the community, what they want is chicken and collard greens. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get offended by that statement. We do like chicken and collard greens, but we also love our maca and our ashwagandha and our moringa. And yes, we know that the businesses here have suffered a great deal. So they do need their mentorship. They do need the access to capital. And whatever know-how that I have, I'm going to try to see if I can impart it into the people in the lives that I'm touching.
You mentioned access to capital. What challenges have you faced in trying to access capital?
I just think in general, if we look at business owners that have been minoritized, we would see that they've been GMO'd, they've been engineered, they've been spliced, they've been separated from the nutrition that they need to not just, they can't thrive, they can't survive. So they don't have the financial capital, they don't have the social capital, they don't have the human capital. So we know redlining capital, we know it's harder for a lot of people to actually get their loans approved. We know the interest rates are higher. We know all these things are happening. So when I say our businesses have been genetically modified, when something happens in a business, socially that business actually dies, the death of that business because of. So socially, we don't get the same press. We don't get the same promotion. We don't get the same platforms. We don't have a presence in larger grocery store chains. So that's why I wanted to say, hey, I want to make sure that I have representation on our shelves so global Africans could have their food, their heritage foods in communities that need it most. It's been a big push since 2019 for larger brands to do that, which is great. But this is something that should have happened. This is something that I'm definitely passionate about doing. But businesses have suffered. Personally, it's been hard for me to actually start this business. I had to bootstrap this myself. I paid for this. out of, credit cards and, having to save different things like that, doing odd jobs, contracting, whatever I needed to do to make sure my vision came into fruition. If you're passionate about it and you know that this is purposeful and is a part of your purpose, you're going to do what you need to do to get it done. So I didn't have any help, but COVID was terror for a lot of us. But that's when help came for some of us. That's when people saw the value in what I wanted to do. Like I hear you, I see you now, but I wasn't really getting a lot of that support. We were here, at the Anacostia Art Center selling, our foods, doing demonstrations, doing trainings, having nutritional classes, having cooking classes, doing all of this stuff. But again, I can't despise small beginnings. So when COVID happened, that's when the funds happened, and a lot of times, traditional banks, it was difficult. And like one transaction last year was the biggest one that I made, and it was commercial property acquisition. And going the traditional route, it took better than 9 months. I'm like, I could have had a baby in that time, waiting on you guys to make it happen. Like, really, come on. Let's not mystify this thing. It's not anything crazy that I'm actually introducing. The credit is good, everything is there. But I had to use my leverage that I've gotten from some grants. I had to use my social leverage that I had. I had to call on to CDFIs who got creative in the financing, and they were able to give me that gap funding that I needed. And one being Wacif. Yes, I always gotta make it happen for Wacif and Capital Impact Partners, because again, I got a call and said, Amanda, you're gonna lose this opportunity. I'm like, wait, no, I'm getting out of bed that morning, like, listen, wait, stop. I can't hear that right now. I can't get discouraged in this moment. But really looking at CDFIs, looking at institutions that can really make things happen, because the traditional banks, they are great. I'm not gonna, say anything bad about it. But again, that was something that really helped me. And that's something that a lot of businesses are facing, just the access to capital piece. And again, you need that financial capital to acquire human capital and also pay for, social media and just everything. It's just a cycle of supports that are needed for small businesses, that is still needed for me because I'm working on a vertical expansion and a few other things. So again, I'm in a fundraising mode all day, almost every day, and trying to get this stuff done. So again, I just have to talk to some money people to say, hey, look, this is the plan and this is how we all can benefit.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that is so unique about Wacif and others in the CDFI space, where we can be creative, right? Because we are deeply connected to community, understand community needs, understand the needs of small businesses. And sometimes traditional financing just does not work, right? Especially if you are used to doing everything in the traditional credit box, right? And a lot of the folks we serve don't fit within those traditional boxes, and we have to recognize that. And we also have to recognize that there's some historical context framing around why we fit the boxes, and apply that lens to the type of underwriting structuring we do for those lending facilities. So, it's about being creative, but also innovative, right? And I hear innovation in the story that you're telling right now. How are you bringing that type of innovation to your work and to the community that you're serving?
Awesome. Thank you for that. I think I mentioned that this is food desert, healthcare desert, economic desert. So to me, when we're thinking about innovation, I will always encourage everybody to look at gaps and how to fill them. And that's what I'm looking to do with the new place that I've acquired. I'm actually starting 2 markets at the beginning of 2025. They're larger than the one that's currently at Sycamore and Oak. I'm thankful for that opportunity to be able to expand there from the Anacostia Art Center there, and also you guys helping me to expand a couple blocks down the street. But these are 2 new spaces. You will have walk-up windows. You'll be able to purchase before, after hours. If anything happens, any shutdown, people will still have access to fresh, healthy food. We wanted to make sure of that in our design and our planning. But in both of them, we're making sure that we touch, healthcare, because again, food is medicine. It should be the first source of medicine that one should actually look at and consider when they're looking to treat any ailment, disease, virus, whatever's actually going on. And working with Sibley Johns Hopkins, I had a relationship with them, and we're looking to continue. I work with different healthcare providers and making sure that that's in the framework of what I always do because of my father's situation and like different things that have come up with my personal life. It's just, how do I use food as my medicine? I use food not just as medicine, but again, hair care products, all that other good stuff like that. Also, innovation to me is, being an go advisor, making sure that this community have heritage food, making sure that global Africans are connected to the continent, making sure that we understand the benefits of those foods. The community has a way to actually experience, foods from different countries, the Caribbean, South Asia, different places like that. If they haven't traveled, they could get an experience from our location, and really making it happen for our incubator members, making sure that they have products, they have necessary ingredients, and we could actually make that impact. But also with the trainings that I do work with DC government agencies and different foundations, healthcare entities, whoever are looking for supports in the entrepreneurship workforce space, but also wellness and nutrition. We're looking at adding app developments to our current health and wellness training. And people who are graduates, they will be able to earn certifications, but also will be able to have their apps in app stores. And we think that that's a big deal for Ward 7 and 8 residents of the District of Columbia, especially those who are benefit dependent. Like if we're really talking about making a shift, if we're really talking about how do we graduate people to the next level, we need innovation, we need creativity, we also need strategic partnerships, some to actually fund that vision. So again, that's some of the other things that we're working at and on, and I have some other things that are underway. I can't really speak to right now, but another thing is a trade expo that we had last September, last month. We have the good brother right here who was a part of it. We were making sure community had access to trade information. I call it the MBA in a day. So if you don't really know how to move your business globally, this was an opportunity for you to actually meet people who are leaders from different embassies, people who are currently trading, and people who could facilitate trade, whether they're attorneys, custom brokers, etc., to make sure community has what they need. And east of the river, you have the majority of businesses who've been minoritized. They don't really have that information. Again, it's bringing it to the community. I wanted people to get beyond the monumental core and downtown to have access, to bring it right here in the community where it can be beneficial, where it's needed most, and really make sure when we talk about Afrofuturism, we're talking about things that are nonfiction, reality. We're living in it now.
Yeah.
What can we be doing as Africans, as global Africans, as people to support, as buyers, as business owners, to really make sure that we are successful? The way the world is moving now, we need to be thinking globally.
Yeah.
How can we actually bring that to our community? That's what we worked on. And yes, landing on what Afrofuturism is. It's definitely tech. It's definitely AI. It's definitely all these things. And then we just really need to have it in our community. So we have like other things that we're working on, and they are some of the innovations.
No, thank you for that. It sounds like you have a roadmap, right? A roadmap for the future, for the next year, for the next 2 years. Where do you see the business 5 years from now?
Yes, I would definitely say it's a roadmap, and I think it grows and goes, and I don't have everything figured out, but I do have a plan. But I like to co-author my life and let everything be like divinely driven. And I definitely say, pivots happen, but I'm not trying to pivot and jump somewhere else, but it pivots to the business. And now let's do this. Now with this new partnership or relationship, this other opportunity could be made available to the community. So within the first next year, 2025, opening the 2 new locations, doing that vertical expansion when the money comes into fruition to actually make that happen. But I definitely see a chain of fresh food factories, market and eateries, not just in DC, but I definitely want to make sure that we have a presence throughout the District of Columbia. We have a location now. When these two new locations open in every zip code east of the river, that was actually the plan. Like, look, I want to make sure that people could be within walking distance to healthy food options. I want people to be within walking distance from a job or from their place of business. And I'm saying that because we are looking to hire from the community so they could actually walk to work. They could actually walk to our kitchens where they are operating their business at a cost that's, affordable, and they're getting great service. This is kind of like what's needed in our community. But this model replicated in the region, been talking to people, whether Maryland, Virginia, but really having a global lens is kind of like where I see this going, and it's graduating. So I'm excited about that, and just really being able to really add impact. That's what I look to do. Thank you. So I think it's enough about me. Let's talk about Miss Shannan. Who's excited? I'm excited. Am I only a business owner? You want to say something? Can we jump into you? Were you going to say something? Did I cut you off?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, because enough about me. I think y'all came in here to actually see this wonderful woman right here. So not only am I a business owner here, I'm a resident here. And I don't know if we had an official welcome for Shannan. Have we? So can we welcome her? I'm excited. We're excited to have you here, not just as a resident of Anacostia, not just, a member of Wacif, not just as a business owner, but everything that I hear you stand for. I'm excited to actually have you here in the community doing great things. Now, I don't know everything about you, so I was actually talking to Monica Ray last month about the vertical expansion. She was like, there's somebody I want you to meet. And it's Shannan, it's her. And I'm like, I think Wacif wants me to do a sit down. So it's just amazing how, everything comes full circle, and like how this moment was actually supposed to be. So I don't know all there is to know about Shannan, but I'm glad to actually learn today. And I know you guys want to learn and hear about Shannan too. So can you please share with us a bit about your background and what brought you here to Wacif in this community here, Anacostia?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that. And Monica, this is amazing. All the work that she's doing with the Black Bone Project. So I got here. I got my start really as a teller at a bank. I was at Howard University. I was a junior finance major, and I didn't know that I wanted to be a banker. I wanted an internship that was finance related. So I started working for a community bank. And this was in the days before you had business bankers. So we were the business bankers in the branch. We would go out and we would knock on doors and introduce ourselves in the community to local small business owners. And when they would come into the branch, they'd come in looking for help, no business bankers. So we would be the help that they were seeking. I told the story at Cultivate Summit, but I would bring my homework from my entrepreneurship class and to help build business plans and marketing plans because no one was available to do it. I did my homework first, just for the record, but I would still supply my homework to the folks that were coming in for help. But I knew then, going through that experience, that that's what I wanted my career to be. I wanted to help small business owners get the financing that they needed to fulfill their dreams. And so after I graduated, I went through this commercial credit training program. It's very conservative. And my ideas and philosophies around underwriting and credit and lending would be shaped over the next 20 so years. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I spent a lot of time unlearning a lot of the things that I was taught during that time. The unlearning came in the form of a question: what is risk? And this question came to me front and center one day when a colleague
approached me and told me that they thought one of my employees was biased and that the bias was showing up in the lending decision. Naturally, I wanted to investigate this, so put the employee to the side and just wanted to know what are your issues with this particular client. And they were focused on 4 things: credit, zip code or location, cash, liquidity, and net worth. And while the questions that were being asked weren't wrong, there was this framing that was missing from the Q&A, right? So inherent bias in credit score, and we talk a lot more about that. The history of redlining and the disinvestment or underinvestment in formerly redlined communities. The inability to accumulate wealth, the inability to generate wealth, income gaps, wealth gaps, savings gaps, all of these things that needed to be part of the discussion that were missing. And what I realized in that moment as well is that those discussion points were missing from my training as well, right? So no one gave me that context either. So I knew in that moment that I had to speak truth to power and educate not just my staff or the people that I was working with, but everyone else. Mm-hmm. And so when the opportunity presented itself for me to join an initiative called Underwriting for Racial Justice, I quickly answered that call because this grassroots initiative was born out of the realization that traditional lending practices have not always served BIPOC communities. I knew from my own research that traditional lending policies had actually excluded and created these gaps that we were seeing in access and opportunity. So joining this cohort of lenders was, just energizing and motivating, but it put me in the middle of a number of different areas that I think are important for our communities. So you'll hear us talk about innovation and bring technology to our small business community and to our community at large. You'll hear me talk about financial trauma and things that we don't talk about relative to financial harm and how that shows up in our customers and the people that we engage with, but how we should be engaging in a better way, in a more compassionate way, to account for some of those things that have been done in the past. So I kind of sit at this intersection of racial equity, racial justice, fintech, and financial trauma bank. So it's a whole bunch of stuff that's just wrapped up in here. But my vision and goal is to bring a lot of that work to Wacif and the way that we develop our programs, the way that we develop our lending, and the way that we engage with community.
I love that. You said a mouthful there, and I just think, the way that we engage with community as we develop programs, that's definitely something that needs to be looked at differently, and that's something that I try to work at being mindful about. But I wanted to ask you, what changes do you see need to happen in our community or in the industry in general, and how did you become the change that you want to see?
Yeah, I think that, the first thing is to listen, all right? A lot of folks approach community thinking that they know better than the people that live in those communities, right? And so here's this thing, you must have it. You need to have this thing. Why do I need it, right? Why do I need this thing? So the listening piece is really, really important, right? Know what you're doing before you go into it. Part of the work that we do with Underwriting for Racial Justice is building this cultural competency so that people know, and I don't know why this initiative didn't work. Well, did you ask anybody if they needed it, right? Was that the first thing that took place? So that's the first part, just listening and understanding. But I think the other part is not being afraid to do the things that need to be done. There's a lot of hesitancy. There's a lot of fear sometimes when we have to make changes. And I think about my own ancestors and the folks that, in the face of just terror and violence, still stood up and did what they needed to do. My great grandfather was a landowner, had property, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and what they were developing these new neighborhoods for Black home ownership. He wanted land there, he bought land, brought the family out for a groundbreaking ceremony. Everybody got to show a little piece of dirt for their home. Sometime after that, someone conferred across on land. And my great grandfather, who was fearless, cleaned up, built the house anyway, right? I'm not gonna let anybody scare me off of my property or scare me away from building this home for my family. And it's that same spirit that lives in me where, okay, yeah, this is hard, this is difficult, but it's necessary, right? Because not doing anything, right, like, it's far worse than whatever consequences are out there from doing the right thing or taking a stand.
I love it. And I love you for this. I think that what you said was just so amazing. And I think, some of us, we will probably have or hear some of those stories from our ancestors, our parents, our great grandparents, or whomever it is. But despite of what had happened, despite of what's happening, we need to actually create change, So I love that about hearing his story and about you creating change in the midst of this climate, everything is actually happening now. And you're newly on board to Wacif. I want to hear about new initiatives that Wacif is actually working on and also innovations that you are bringing to the table.
Ooh, so many, this is the funny part about this job and this work, right? And you can probably relate to this as well. It never shuts off. Your mind is always going. You're always thinking about new ways to show up, new things to do, new ideas to bring to the community. Because, like I said, not doing anything, there's so much risk in that. And so you always want to, at least for me, I'm always thinking about how we can be better, how we can change things, how we can help. So a few things that we're working on. First, we're really excited about is the launch of our Office of Women's Initiatives. Women are the largest group of small business owners and entrepreneurs in this country. Black women, the fastest growing segment of small business owners, but the most underfunded as well, right? So last year, women founders received 1.89% of all of the funding that was available. That was down from 2% previous year. Yeah, that was that. Black women, 0.34% of that funding. Yeah, I'm gonna say that again. 0.34% of the funding went to Black women. That's a problem. It is. That's a problem, right? So this Office of Women's Initiatives, it's designed for all women. 60% of our clients are women, and we already have some really amazing programs that focus on women, and so we're building off of that. Our Enterprising Women of Color initiative, we're also launching Capital Region Women's Business Center in partnership with the SBA, and so that will be housed under this Office of Women's Initiatives. So, really doubling down on the work that we do to support them small business owners. In addition to that, right, because we'll have women coming through these programs that we're creating, we'll be able to collect data and create additional programs, potentially creating loan programs, but act as an advocacy arm as well, right? So now, what you're experiencing as a small business owner, we can talk to policymakers, we can talk to others about how we make real change, because nothing happens in a silo, right? And for any of the initiatives that we want to put forward, there has to be this public-private partnership, right? We need to have support at the legislative level. We need to have support from others to make these things happen. So that's one of the goals with the Office Initiatives. I can keep going.
I love it. Any other innovations, anything you want to bring?
Absolutely.
We need it.
So the other, as I mentioned, underwrite for racial justice. We are part of this cohort. So we have 18 lenders in total that are part of the cohort. And over the next 2 years or so, we'll be using advanced technology, AI, and machine learning to figure out how we underwrite in a more productive and effective way. So what does this mean? So far, what we've seen from this initiative is how credit scores can either be eliminated or thresholds lowered, because the AI is telling us that this is not what risk is. This is not risky. Folks in lower credit bands actually outperform sometimes people with higher credit bands. Yes, right? This is what we are learning through this initiative. And so what we're looking at is, how do we enhance the things that we're doing now, using the data that we have to be able to provide more products, more services, more appropriating to the community that we serve. This will all be part of a white paper that Urban Institute is putting together, so it will be available to everyone. So you can see all of the results of the hard work that we're putting into this. But it was important for us to do it because we wanted to make sure that, again, we're engaging in the right way and really focus on the things that matter to our community. We developed a loan program under this initiative that is a wealth building product that centers financial trauma. You mentioned financial trauma before, but this centers financial trauma. But we're working with mental health professionals to really look at the work that we're doing. All right, so is the messaging right? Are we engaging in the right way? Does the product make sense, right? Because don't want to trigger people who have experienced financial harm. And it's been interesting just to learn what some of these, what financial trauma looks like, and what I used to see in customers or clients of mine that now has a name, right? And so now that it has a name and we can name those behaviors, we have a responsibility to show up in a different way.
I love it. I love it. I like how you were taking ownership of your leadership. I would call you a leader, right? So, yes. So I definitely want to know, like, do you consider yourself a leader? And I would call you that. So how does it feel to be a leader in this industry and in the community? And not only how does it feel, but what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So I'll be honest. I haven't always been a leader. I've had leadership titles, leadership roles, but I haven't always been the kind of leader that I wanted to be because I'm a rule follower, right? Anybody know what that means? Be a rule follower, right? Yeah. So it says you do this, and so you do that, right? But working in heavily regulated industries, you have to be a rule follower, otherwise you get in trouble if you like trouble, fines and everything else. But it wasn't until I realized that the rules were not neutral, they weren't fair, and they were responsible for the racial inequality that I was trying to solve for, right? So then that meant, okay, so now you got to break the rules. The rules, you don't need to follow these rules all the time. And so it was in those moments of breaking the rules or figuring out new rules or dismantling the rules and rewriting the rules that I felt that I was finally becoming the leader that I wanted to be. It's through the work of, understanding things like financial trauma, how it has shown up in my own family, to better understand how it shows up in the community, because we have to start here first, right? Starting at home, understanding how that starts. As I mentioned, my great-grandfather and having this crossburn on the property. In addition to that, having some of their neighbors' homes bombed during that time, because not everyone was happy that this neighborhood was being constructed for Black folks. Well, that created trauma, right, in the family. Upward buildings now associated with terror. Nobody talked about money for that reason. Nobody knew who to trust. You don't go to the bank. You don't talk about things. And so how does that generational trauma get passed down? So now nobody talks about money. Nobody asks questions. Nobody does anything. And so I wanted to be the one to break that. And again, being fourth generation now as the first Bateman in the family, I think I've done that, but by being a leader in that space, being a leader that even my family can come to ask questions of when they have financial issues or challenges, things of that nature. So, I think that being a leader in this space means doing things that may not be fun, may be challenging. Sometimes the work, it can be painful to relive things or hear stories or understand, how some of these disparities came to be. But it means pushing through that to do the work that's necessary to make change. So keeping community always in mind, right? Who's on the other side of this transaction? Who's on the other side of this decision? Who's on the other side of this conversation? Keeping that in mind and working always for the person that's on the other side.
I love it. Again, I love how you take ownership of your leadership, and you're doing a tremendous job from what I hear from the team and from what you're actually telling us now. And I look at, again, leadership as being a visionary, and again, like you're saying, breaking the rules, and then that you'll be remembered. You're leaving legacy, and I tell people, like, you're leaving legacy every day, whether you realize it or not. Somebody is, you know, they're perceiving you to be a certain way. Your children or anybody that you meet and see on the street, you're leaving legacy. How do you want to be remembered, and what legacy do you want to leave?
Someone that always showed up, that was willing to do whatever it took to help. Right? I became a banker, a real banker, because I wanted to help. Right? I saw that there was a need. I wanted to help people get financing and live out their dreams. I want to help people. I want to help communities. So all of these initiatives that I'm talking about here with Wacif and what we're bringing and the vision for the future, it's all designed to help. And I think, all of us have a role to play in helping make things better. It's not up to one person. It's not up to me. It's not up to you. It's up to the collective. We all have a responsibility to take care of each other. That is what community needs, right? And I remember growing up in my community, you got in trouble with one name. Like, everybody knew. Before you got home, the neighbors had already called your mother. That's Shannan Herbert. Like, okay, this is what she did. And so, there was no, just no one knew, no one was talking. Like, everybody knew, because that's what community was. It was this accountability piece to community, right? To make sure that everyone was doing what they were supposed to do. Even down to, like, we're all at the bus stop after school. Okay, so there's a parent that's going to come and walk everybody home, because there's this community accountability. That is how I feel about the communities that we work with. There's this shared accountability that we all have to have in order for things to change in the way that we want them to change, but to also be sustainable, right? We can put something in place and then walk away, but what good does that do? Right? We want all of this to be here forever. We want it to be sustainable. And the way we do that is through partnership, as you mentioned, but just that understanding of